In a past long ago, there were only a few races in this world. The most important ones were the spirit races. There were wolves and there were foxes. Once a great evil was emerging, it was up to adventurers to stop it. Since most races were just starting to learn the ropes, it were not humans or elves who led the fight against the great evil. No, it were these spirit races and their champions who did it. Hello everybody, my name is Bram Verlinde, I am the DM for the Demons of the World campaign, and I'm going to bring you the setting and session 0 for the DM diary basically. So what I'm going to talk about in this series is exactly what happened in what my players did. But first of all, I want to give you some insight to what happened from a DM standpoint, or at least a new DM standpoint. So my story takes place about 8,000, 9,000 years before anything. It's about a short story I wrote one day for my, at that point, girlfriend who liked the idea of foxes, I guess. But I made them all really heroic and I gave them like mortal enemies and then the friends who become nemesis with the spirit wolves and everything. I thought it was pretty cool, so I kind of kept it for my story in this one. So basically my story is set in a completely different setting than Faerun. But that's okay because I like the world building anyway, and I've made countless worlds just because I wanted to.
I just told you who I thought I was, a god!
So in our session 0 I said a lot about the forests and how every forest is a part of some tribe, either the fox spirits or the wolf spirits. And in that session 0 a lot of people made a lot of characters with a lot of affinity for nature, with maybe one exception and then one joining in later. Because I like roleplay and because I want my players to be roleplaying, I give them all roleplaying feats. So first of all I made a list of a lot of features that are good for combat. But those were not allowed. I said a roleplay feat. Also, you couldn't add the extra ability it would give, so a lot of things were a lot weaker. So about that, a lot of people thought that was a little bit hard, a little bit weird, and I understand that, and I understand that a DM should maybe not do that, give bonuses to the players immediately. While they are definitely interesting, I haven't really seen them into action that much. It's mostly been getting like expertise in some certain things or getting a proficiency. Only one feat has really been a problem right now, and that is menacing. So there is a bard in the party, there often is, and he's a small Lightfoot halfling. And he took menacing, so that would mean that as an action he can use that to try and frighten a creature, which I learned in my first session was interesting. So in the first session they encounter an attack from giants. They are like 4th level exhaustion and already on half hit points from the half hit points. So really just, it takes 40 damage to kill them, and there's enough defensive possibilities. I wasn't too great at encounter building anyway, so I didn't really know what was balanced and what was not. I tried to tend to the very easy side. There is a very aggressive dwarf 4th level that will take the punches. They have no weapons, so it are punches, which is only a d6, which could have been much more, but I said they're 4th level exhausted. They have disadvantage on their attacks. They actually only, I even put, instead of plus, I think it's 9 or 10, they only get plus 5 because I said it's disadvantage, so that also makes sense. And it's 1st level. So very few people got hit, and not by a lot at all. I don't want your characters to die. This is not going to be one of those campaigns where you will die often, but I did want to make sure that if you die, sorry. Yet I did want to feel a little bit possibility, I guess, that someone would go down. No one went down. There was healing in case it was needed, and there was a, I would call it DM Ex Machina of a character way stronger than the PCs that could come and save them, but there was no need to, so that was fine. However, the halfling, he just turned to one of those giants and he said bad things, and then he was like, yeah, you can do a wisdom saving throw and I will roll for intimidation, which of course he had expertise in because of the menacing feat. and I would have to roll insight, I believe it was, or wisdom, I don't even remember, it's been a few weeks. And that would mean that this giant, tired and everything, and with everything I have in the back of my mind, still thought, I do not want to go close to that halfling. However, I did think at that point that that frightened was literally you run away from things. But now I understand those tactics a little bit more, because he has been using it more, so I can actually just slowly acclimatize to that, and now I know my ways around it.
Started from the bottom, now we're here.
That being said, the first few episodes he might come up more. His name is Teddy, is probably gonna come up a lot because he seems to be the spokesperson for the entire group. However, I was talking about setting, right? So this world I've created is not even a continent, but it is a big piece of art. It has been cut off of everything else, all the dangers are away from it, all the dangers came from within in these last 9,000 years. So there was a mountain ridge all up in the north, and there is a mountain ridge all up in the south. I know what's beyond them, but it's gonna take a while before the PCs do. I actually think that we're gonna finish this story before they know, and I'm going to take another party through the jungles in the south and or the northern waste. And that together is one continent of an entire world. Of course, I could go on about the rest of the world, but we won't see it for a very, very long time, so I'm gonna keep it straight, and we're gonna talk about this country on itself. I say a country, it is an empire. It is ruled by an emperor, therefore it is an empire. Really, all they know is that there are 4 major cities. One of them is the hub for all the other cities, and every city has their own use. For instance, you have Prodia all up in the east. Prodia is a city mostly controlled by humans. They have a very large harbor, very known for that harbor, and they have mostly just been funneling food to the rest of the empire. That was per arrangement from the emperor, of course. Everything had to go through the main city, the capital of Bangkok. That way the emperor could keep a part of the food and all the other resources for himself. Since Prodia is mostly ruled by humans and they have a human emperor, they haven't really tried to stand up to him. They have kind of stopped funneling food to the entirety of the realm, mostly because it's just getting too big for them to handle and they gotta feed their own people, so that's a thing. One other city is Igrail. Past the deserts in the south, all up in the mountains, there is a dwarven stronghold. Most people actually are welcome here, but it will be mostly the dwarves who are the higher positions. There are a few humans and maybe an elf here or there, somewhere in the higher ranks, but it's mostly dwarves. The dwarves basically have to ensure that the rest of the empire has enough alloys and iron, steel, whatever they need, and armor, so that they can do whatever they want. But, you know, if you hold most of the iron and steel, and they're asking more of you, you can just raise an army quite easily. You can give them inferior iron, and most of the times that's what the dwarves did, which made sure that if they lost the war, which they did quite recently, they would get imposed even higher taxes and higher standards. And that is sort of what I'm going to leave that setting right now. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. I have an idea. I'm pretty sure the dwarves don't like the tiny human boy on the emperor's seat telling them what to do. But yeah, we will see about that. And then to the west, not quite to the sea, but more in the thickest forests and the Korkari wilds, we have the city of Venaris. A very new city. It has been ransacked after they tried to overthrow the emperor. It was called differently. I'm assuming that the characters will get there quite quickly. They're starting somewhere near Venaris, so it would make sense that if they want to go to a big city, they would like to go to Venaris. However, for all its splendor, it's kind of losing a bit since there are a lot of refugees coming from the capital. The city was never really welcoming to refugees, but they were allowed to stay. That you can see in the residential area and the marketplace, where a lot of races are gathered. Whoever's useful can stay, but the nobility, they are all elven. It's been a few years now since Prince Euberon still hasn't really changed his title, though he is the person in power. I actually already know exactly what I'm going to do with Venaris because they will be there, but we'll see. That leads us to Bangkok. the capital of the empire, the seat of the emperor, and a tiny emperor it is. Only 10 years of age, Zaladun II will have to make sure that his empire survives, or he doesn't. He is known to be advised by a spy master who is said to be the best spy in all of Krugus, but he requires more aid. Therefore, an old advisor of the emperor that has recently passed is now kind of the second in command, kind of trying to make sure that the empire doesn't die on his watch. Well, there's definitely a lot of power struggles and a lot of political intrigue in the capital. I only want my players to go there if they think that they are up for that. Vanar is going to be like the most basic of cities. Benkor is going to be very politically focused, and I'm going to make sure that they know that. What I'm expecting to happen, I haven't written down everything, as probably you know, but I'm assuming that they will stay in the village they start at for a while. They're going to go to Venaris, probably going to throw them 1 or 2 villages in between, and then they will go to Benkor. And either I see them doing well in a political environment and they can stay there for a while, or I will literally just ship them off to another city, one with more war intrigues, or one that's just peaceful with a lot of problems. I'm not sure, I don't really consider myself as being great at the whole DM thing. I like telling stories, and it's a good way to just write stuff off of me, and who knows, maybe one day I will write the original story in a full-fledged book. The original story would be with my friends who played it first, but that was an entirely self-made sort of game. That was no D&D involved whatsoever. It was all me, basically. And that was just too much to do. So I changed everything to D&D 5e, whatever was possible, and we'll see what happens. We will see what happens, and I hope you'll join me on this adventure. I hope you'll join me for the next day in a new story.